Well, hello there. You're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the consultant editor of the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearce, and the associate editor of the Daily Mirror, Kevin Maguire. Great to see you, Andrew. I thought the technology had defeated you for a while there.
I couldn't find my volume. And, you know, I know Kevin doesn't want to hear the sound of my voice, but anyway, I found it eventually.
Yes, your audience does, obviously.
I couldn't find the knob.
Right. Good to know.
Oh, dear.
Let's look at the front pages, shall we? Starting with the Financial Times. It leads with the agreement by the UK and the EU to work together on ensuring each other's vaccine supply in a move that may ease diplomatic tensions. Here's the Express's headline: At last, EU sees sense in jab row. The Metro points out that before the statement was released, Boris Johnson cautioned that the EU's refusal to export any of its stock could prompt businesses to stop investing there. The Telegraph understands the Prime Minister intends to let individual publicans decide for themselves whether patrons will have to prove they don't have COVID or have been vaccinated. Same lead story for the Mail: vaccine passport to go to the pub. Likewise, The Sun, which splashes with no jab, no pint. And the Times too: COVID jab needed to enter pubs, the headline for them. The Guardian leading with what experts have called an incredible injustice for pupils from minority ethnic backgrounds who have been excluded at far higher rates than other children. And on a different note, the Star suggesting that pollution is causing a certain part of men's anatomy to shrink. Oh, we end where we started. Oh, no, I'm going to stop there. Andrew Pearce, Kevin Maguire. So, pubs, let's cheer ourselves up. Kind of. So you can only go, possibly, if you prove you haven't got COVID or you've had a vaccination. Andrew, your thoughts?
Well, look, you know, I try to be libertarian about things, but I think it's an economic reality. This is going to be the way forward for many, many businesses. People want to go back to the pub. Maguire and I will no doubt find pubs with a garden on April the 12th, where you can sit outside and have a pint. But publicans already can bar people for all sorts of reasons. They may not like the cut of their jib. They may be a bit drunk. They may think they're not old enough. And I think it's a logical thing now for them to say, have you had the vaccine? Are you in the clear? If you've got an exclusion, so be it. But I think it's just economic reality. I was talking to a great friend who's involved in the theatre the other day, and she said it's the same for the theatre. If they want to get West End shows back, and by God, we want to get performing arts back, almost certainly they're going to have to say, you've got to show that you are COVID-free, because it's going to deter other people from going to the theatre. It's going to deter other people from going to the pub. And I know it's going to produce house a protest from the libertarian wing of Britain. But I'm afraid I don't have any great objections to this. If it means we can get pubs back in business, making money, doing what they do best, serving pints, serving good food, all well and good, because they've had a terrible year. And the same rule, I think, is going to apply to restaurants as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Everybody wants to go with confidence, don't they, to a location, certainly. It's the lead for the Daily Telegraph too. This all came out in the liaison committee, the heads of the select committees asking the Prime Minister's questions. It does feel a bit like policy on the hoof, though, doesn't it? And once again, gives the onus to other organisations, be it care homes for insisting that staff there have jabs, or publicans for ensuring COVID vaccines or a negative test. Is it right that the government leaves it to these individual organisations, do you think, Kevin?
Well, I know the Telegraph has a poll saying it's popular by people by 56 to 17% think proving you don't have COVID to get in the pub is a good idea. But you're quite right about Boris Johnson. He lurches around more than a paralytic drunk chucked out after an all-day bender. One day he'll back something, the next he won't. Ministers always contradict each other. So you don't know if it's just a throwaway line, a bit of bar talk, he had some space to fill at the committee, or whether it's a serious runner. But if it is a serious runner, just leaving it to publicans, to landlords, as you say, I think would feel a bit buck passing by the Prime Minister. When you basically are introducing a form of a passport, show your papers to get in a pub. I don't think it's necessarily wrong right from the beginning, even before I had the jab myself. I thought, if this is how you open up, whether it's theatres, cinemas, sports grounds, pubs, cafes, restaurants, whatever it is, if you have the jab and you can go in because you will be safe and the staff must also be safe too, then I couldn't see what was wrong with it over a period of time. But he's going to get a kicking from some of his own party. And I do think we should reinforce it with legislation in some way if it's going to happen.
Well, can I just say that, look, I think we're all a bit sick to death of the government telling us everything we can and can't do. I know we've had to do that to get the lockdown sorted out, and the government took extraordinary emergency powers. The opposition went along with it, but we are easing out of lockdown now, and let people make their own decisions, Kevin. We don't have to have the government deciding every single thing for us, legislating on everything. No more legislation, please. No more rules and diktats from the government. Let the market decide. Let publicans decide, restaurateurs decide. Let them make their own decisions. If they decide you don't need identification in that pub, you watch how many people will go to that pub. Not very many.
I'll tell you what will happen, Andrew, if you just leave it to pubs. There'll be a landlord or a landlady says, we're going to operate this, then you're going to get a group of lads, possibly a bit worse for wear, being a bit boisterous, been locked out of pubs for a long time, turning up. And when it's when it's just the word of the landlord, it'll kick off. If it's the law, they are more likely to respect it, because then the police could be called and can intervene. That's why Johnson needs the courage of his convictions if he's going to go down this. Don't keep passing on responsibility. You know he does that. He always wants to pass the blame to somebody else.
No, I fundamentally disagree with that. There's a poll shows today that the 18 to 34-year-olds are the group most likely to completely ignore the rules now, and we're still in the thick of the pandemic. They won't care about what the government says or what the law says. You've seen them, how many young people are gathering in great groups and crowds, whether it's on a field or on Hampstead Heath or wherever you are. We saw what it was like in Soho before the last lockdown.
Andrew,
they don't care.
Yeah, this leads to so many questions.
We don't need the government to tell them.
Yeah, this leads to so many questions, though, for publicans, for them to decide. What do you call vaccinated? Yeah. I mean, Saga Holidays, I made note, means 2 vaccines plus 1 week. That means nobody's going inside a pub for a very long time, actually. Does it mean which sort of testing? Does it mean lateral flow testing? Does it mean PCR testing? If so, are you going to make that more available to people? What are you going to do about staff? Will they be tested every day? I mean, it goes on, these questions, doesn't it?
We've got to learn to live with it, Anna. So we just have to find a way through it. This wretched thing isn't going to disappear in June when the lockdown is lifted finally. It's going to be with us for a very long time. It's going to be back in the autumn, back in the winter with a vengeance. We've seen what's happening all across Europe. We've got to learn to live with it, but it doesn't mean we have to have the government deciding every single thing for us. We can be grown up about it, and we're going to have to find a way through this, because otherwise we are never going to be able to leave our homes. We're never going to be able to go back to work, never be able to go on a coach or bus again. We've got to get a grip.
The Sun says booze a shock. Just quickly as well, The Guardian suggests that if the pubs can use a COVID passport, they could do away with social distancing. That is big economic impact for them, obviously, doesn't it? Because it means more people can get inside a pub. So that's also important.
It is, Anna. It means you can get to the bar and buy a drink. Not that Andrew Pierce has ever been to a bar to buy a drink. I've been in a pub with him. He doesn't need a passport. He needs a map to find that bar. You'll find that he has very short arms, long pockets, and wants to go to the toilet or just gets lost. And you die of thirst if you waited for him to buy a drink. But you're right. If one of the problems landlords say is if you have all these controls inside and you've got to have fewer tables, it's very hard to get a pub to be economically viable. And I want pubs to be as safe as possible. And if people are vaccinated, everybody's vaccinated, then they will be a lot safer than if people are going in unvaccinated.
Can we squeeze in very quickly the FT and the UK and EU trying to calm the row? Try to be nice about Ursula von der Leyen. We had complaints about the way you spoke about her last time, Andrew.
Well, were they complaining I wasn't rude enough?
No.
No.
Sorry.
No.
I'm so sorry.
I think you missed it again.
Because she is continuing to preside over utter chaos, utter shambles, EU leaders publicly disowning this woman. She just has to remember she got 3 months late to AstraZeneca to sign contracts, 3 months after the UK, and the AstraZeneca contracts were not binding in the way Britain was. They were something, I think the expression was best reasonable efforts. Well, they're paying a heavy price now for the fact their best reasonable efforts means they haven't been able to give the EU as many as they wanted. They should all appeal for calm. There's a summit tomorrow, but I think calm will be restored. But they should send Ursula von der Leyen out of the room. She's an idiot.
Oh, God, yeah. Unlike your hero, Boris Johnson, who's a superhuman and presided over 126,000 plus
break,
official...
I think. Gentlemen, thank you very much for now. We will see you very shortly. Coming up, an injustice for Black Caribbean pupils. Talking about that investigation in The Guardian next.
I started pen paling seriously just this summer. There's a program on Twitter called Penpalooza, which was started by the New Yorker writer Rachel Syme in the summer of last year. And there are now 12,000 people participating. So that's how I started pen paling, but it's evolved since then. So we are, being based in Dublin, we are still in lockdown. So the pen pals allow me to kind of travel and see parts of the world that, you know, one hopes they would get to go to. Just yesterday, I was sending pen pal letters to Germany, Canada, and England. So it's really exciting to just be able to send a couple thoughts and, you know, maybe some stickers to someone around the other side of the world and just tell them I'm thinking of them, especially as we're all isolating and in lockdown. The pandemic has certainly reminded a lot of people that maybe the way they were, you know, allocating their days before lockdowns and isolations and things wasn't the healthiest. And I think that's why Penpalooza and pen paling has been such a success, because people are really enjoying taking the time at the end of a day or on a Saturday or a Sunday or, you know, maybe before work and just saying, you know, hey, I'm thinking of you. And I really think that if everyone just sat down today and wrote a letter, the world would be a much kinder place.
I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi. We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news.
Well, welcome back. You're watching the press preview. With me now, Andrew Pearce and Kevin Maguire. Welcome back to both of you. Lots to pack in, lots on the front page of The Guardian you wanted to mention. First of all, the headline, exclusion rates for Black Caribbean students in English schools are up to 6 times higher than those of their white peers in some local authorities. Gypsy, Roma and traveller children also excluded at much higher rates, with Roma children 9 times more likely to be suspended in some areas. An important story for, on that. We'll talk about that at 11:30. You also want to talk about flags, though, flying from buildings. They've decided to, Kevin, show the Prime Minister with his flags.
Yeah, it's, you know, patriotism, the last refuge of the scoundrel. Politicians wrap themselves up in flags when they probably don't want us to talk about those exclusion figures, for instance, and other more important issues. In one way, I've no objection to public buildings flying the Union flag, and in many ways, I've wondered why they haven't for a long time. You can have your national flag too. You could have the EU flag back in the day. You might have a county flag, but I think coming in with it now, this government is just obsessed with flags at the moment. There was one idiot Tory MP who was having to go at the head of the BBC saying, why were there no flags in the last annual report? Then somebody pointed out there were no flags in the last Tory manifesto. I mean, the bloke looked a complete plonker as a result. But this is going to be very provocative, though, I think, the flags in somewhere like Scotland. And why do it? I just don't think at the moment it will increase.
Well, you're allowed to fly too, aren't you?
Well, hang on. Why is it provocative? And by the way, Boris isn't the first Prime Minister to do this. Kevin's mate, Gordon Brown, did this when he was in his first 6 months of his premiership. And actually, Miss Sturgeon has taken down the Union flag, except on Remembrance Day in Scotland, and stuck up the European Union flag, which is really stupid and pathetic. I think it's a good thing to show the flag, good to be patriotic. What's wrong with it? And I have one in my kitchen, which I regularly flutter.
Which hopefully you'll bring out at 11:30, she said. Joking,
I will.
Obviously. Let's go to the other picture story round, which is this extraordinary situation in the Suez Canal. The FT's decided to go for the digger, looking very tiny, against the bulging part of the ship at the front, which I've now forgotten its official name, may well be sort of sunk underneath the prow, is it? Sunk actually underneath the part of the Suez Canal, completely blocked. It is amazing, this, isn't it?
Yeah, the front of a ship's the bow. Is that the word you were looking for?
No,
or is there another name?
The bulgy bit on a supertanker is anyway, not... I'm told it's the prow.
Yeah, we're not very ship-shape on this, are we, really? But the FT, though, do have just the size of these vessels. It says it's almost as long as the Empire State Building is high. And that's 400 metres. That's about 4 football pitches, 59 metres wide. Maybe it's a surprise this hasn't happened a bit more often when you look at the size of these, because if they get blown off course or knocked off course, it's very, very difficult to right them. But that canal is an absolute lifeline for the world trade. 120 miles long, 50 vessels a day, 10% of all sea trade. Absolutely incredible.
Don't you feel
Taiwanese owned and not British flagged. I normally want vessels to be British flagged, but I'm glad this one's not.
Well, I've just got to say, you've got to feel a little bit sorry for the skipper, because I suspect he's not going to get his bonus this month, because that is one hell of a problem.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? So it's not built for supertankers. It's the bulbous bow, apparently. We will see them at 11:30. Thank you.
For the early risers.
As we examine the story beyond the headline.
For the knowledge seekers.
Welcome to Divided States.
For the straight talkers. The curious and the ones who want to be entertained.
Backstage, Sky News' entertainment podcast.
For wherever you are.
Welcome to Sophie Ridge on Sunday podcast.
For the ones who want to know more.
Welcome to the All Out Politics podcast.
For the listeners.
From Sky News Storycast.
Sky News Podcasts. Listen and subscribe for free.